Bediako or James Najee, right? Like these are very similar to many of the signings we saw last year. The exception is R.J. Luis. So that's where most people are upset, including what we just heard from Jeff Goodman. Is he ruining the sport? Is Will Wade ruining the sport of college basketball by doing this?
No.
Because that's where a lot of people are going with this.
Right. I think there's a lot of things that could qualify as ruining the sport.
Yeah. For me, no. I get why people are upset, but if you're Will Wade, you're not beholden to anything other than winning basketball games. Like, that's all that matters. You know, Jeff Goodman's like, have some pride. And it's like, I mean, I do. I'm trying to win basketball games, and I have pride through that.
Also, yeah, try not to get fired.
Yeah, and, like, once again, the NCAA only has itself to blame because for years they dragged their feet on eligibility, especially as it pertains to basketball. I mean, you've got the transfer portal is created in 2018. NIL comes on board in 2021. Then because of that, the international pipeline becomes much larger because now you're competing at the lower level of international pay, at least initially. Now you're at the top end in terms of how much money players can make, right? So you're competing in that market. And all this time, the NCAA did nothing to change its requirements, its eligibility rules. I mean, you had dramatic changes to the rules with the transfer portal, with NIL, which then led to international recruiting, and you did nothing. You still had these old rules for eligibility. And now they've come in and said, okay, we're going to try to do this. You know, you get 5 years of eligibility. It's a blanket. It's either 5 years or however, starting at 19. I mean, it's to me, Will Wade is just exploiting what the NCAA has not done. That's what sports across the board is all about. Is Will Wade ruining college basketball? No. I mean, for years across all sports, coaches are constantly testing the margins in order to win. Mm-hmm. It's not unique to Will Wade.
Right. I mean, we saw it with James Najee and Baylor last year. Now, the difference between R.J. Luis and James Najee is James Najee was drafted, but he never actually signed a contract. That's the only difference, is R.J. Luis has his signature on a piece of paper that made him an NBA player, even though he never played in an NBA game. And he's not actually the only guy that's been drafted that's on LSU's roster. There's another. There's a James Najee 2.0. This Salo Niang, 22-year-old Italian forward, was drafted in just the 2025 NBA draft, the last pick by the Cleveland Cavs. So
yeah, they've got a bunch of Niangs on their roster. And look, the counter to this argument is, that this taking up roster spots with these guys limits opportunities for younger players to get in on a sport that is geared towards younger players. And I understand that argument. I also, more so than any other arguments, understand the argument of, like, you made your choice, RJ. You got to live with it. You made a bad choice. You had the wrong people giving you advice. You overestimated your value. We see this all the time. Mm-hmm. Guys are constantly overstating or overestimating their value. They have the wrong people in their corner that are constantly feeding them information about how good they are, and they don't realize that they're not as good as they think they are, and they don't have as much earning potential as they think they do, and so they bolt and leave. And Luis did this in the NIL era, so he only has himself to blame. And I think in that case, people have legitimate arguments to be made about, like, we all make decisions in life, and you have to live with these decisions. You can't go back on those decisions when they're the wrong decisions.
Right.
The problem with that argument is, in this case, they literally can go back on those decisions based on the NCAA's inaction. Mm-hmm. Right. So as much as we want to say, like, well, you made your bed, now you got to lie in it. Believe me, I'm one of the first in line to say something like that, because that, like, you have the right to make decisions, and you have the right to make the right decision. You have the right to make the wrong decision, but that's not how you gauge the decisions, right? You have to make them in real time with all the information you have. And I'm sorry that you made the wrong decision, but that's life. But the reality here is the NCAA did not create the framework that would allow them to live with those decisions without having to go back, without being able to go back on them.
Totally. And this
it's not Will Wade's responsibility to look out for the best interest of the NCAA. Everybody's looking out for the best interest of themselves. Everybody, the SEC is, the Big Ten is, the teams are. Nobody cares about what's best for the sport in any sport.
Right. I mean, his job is to win basketball games. I think this case has just been magnified because we know what type of player R.J. Luis is. And there was a 23-year-old Britain point guard who just signed with, I think, St. John's about a month ago, who's probably going to be way better than R.J. Like, there are international prospects, but it's because they didn't sign an NBA contract that are actually going to be better players. And when you look at, like, Michigan and the way they built their roster, Will Wade sees that experience and older players win basketball games.
Of course. And, again, you could argue the sport is better because there's more talent, more better players, which, inherently will raise the profile of the sport overall. But, yeah, I mean, it's been sort of a developmental league for coaches to help players get better. And that is going to limit the opportunities for 18-year-olds coming out of high school. I think there will be some coaches that will be committed to that. The problem with that is, like, you might bring in an 18-year-old high school player and say, I'm going to help develop him. By the time he's 20, he's out the door and going somewhere else for more money because you've developed him.
Mm-hmm. So this case somewhat resembles the Charles Bediako case. The NCAA and President Charlie Baker said players who sign NBA contracts, even if it is a two-way deal, lose college eligibility. Well, that case last year with Bediako sued the NCAA, got the temporary restraining order, played in 5 games, and then he was ultimately shut down by a judge who denied further relief. So the playbook for Will Wade is, hey, I'm going to sign the player, I'm going to challenge the NCAA in court, get a judge to hopefully grant a temporary restraining order before the season tips off, let him play as much as he can, maybe the entire year, try to kick the can down the road. And it's essentially just a giant middle finger to the NCAA, which is why I think people are so mad.
Yeah, and again, like, this is messy and dirty, but this is kind of the process that has to take place without government intervention in order to get all this stuff sorted out. Like, I just can't stress this enough. Like, a market materialized out of thin air in 2021 in terms of the NIL. And it takes courts time, over time, to create precedent, which over time then, builds up to where, like, now those court rulings will supersede any NCAA bylaws. Like, the Bediako case is one precedent. If this Luis case goes the same way as the Bediako case, now you've got more of a precedent that lawyers and judges can pull upon. And the NCAA has more of a leg to stand on. But this is all part of the process. It's dirty. It's not fun. It's messy. There's a lot going on. But, like, this was always going to be the case once NIL came online in 2021. This is how markets even themselves out. And this is the way it should go, honestly. We don't need government intervention to create these laws. And especially because, like, again, it's been 2021. It's been 5 years. We have not had a vote in the House or the Senate on any legislation as it pertains to NIL. There have been lots of bills.
Oh, yeah.
There have been discussions. The SCORE Act was the latest. It once again did not reach a vote. It was supposed to be voted on the House floor yesterday, and instead it got trashed. I mean, it's...
And this is the window. This is the window before the eligibility stuff comes down. This is the window where players were making way above their market value when we were working through the House settlement and the $20.5 million cap. It's the window, and Will Wade's doing everything he can to take advantage of it. All right, coming up next, we power rank the top 5 non-conference games for the Big 12 football season before we chat with Matt Brown, the founder and publisher of Extra Points. He'll join us here in about 20 minutes. He's Ari, I'm James. We're powered by Modelo here on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios.
Jackson's in trouble now. David Bailey, he is a sack machine.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. Matt Brown will be our guest here in this first hour, founder and publisher of Extra Points. He joins us via the phone here in about 15, and then the commissioner, Brett Yormark, Big 12 commish, will be in the house, in studio with us at the top of the hour. Each and every Wednesday, we power rank because
It's a power ranking world. It's not good enough to just have things. You have to power rank them accordingly, and so that's what we do on Wednesdays. You remember that, James.
today we are power ranking the top 5 non-conference games in the Big 12. Last year, uptick in terms of the Big 12 and the non-conference. Not quite where we'd like to see the league yet, but it was improvement from the year before. So this year is going to be huge for the Big 12 in the non-conference. So, without further ado,
Number 5.
This is where I have the border war. September 11th, Kansas, Missouri. This is a Friday night football game in Lawrence, Kansas. It will be a very juiced up crowd in Lawrence. It's the first time that this game's played in Lawrence in a long time. Of course, we've talked a lot about this rivalry. It goes deep back to the Civil War with the Jayhawkers as part of the Freedom Fighters and Missouri being a slave state. So these were two states warring at the crux of the Civil War right there, as you know, obviously growing up in the state of Kansas. Kansas, the free state, Missouri, the slave state. So if you're a Missouri fan, you are pro-slavery.
Homer pick is what I say with KU and Missouri.
But look, KU, this is a big game. What are you, Homer pick? It's a Friday night game. It's a
Took you a
rivalry
minute.
game. I'm taking offense to that.
Took you a minute.
But yeah, I mean, look, Missouri has former Ole Miss quarterback Austin Simmons, who's got all kinds of talent, but hasn't put it all together because he's been injured. He only has 107 career attempts due to injury setbacks, but a rocket arm. And then, of course, what's the status of running back Ahmad Hardy, who was shot this offseason? Will he be available week 2? But I'm not sure how good Kansas is going to be this year. Missouri should win this game and be better, but we'll see.
Yeah, Ahmad Hardy shot by a bunch of his former high school teammates. That was a weird deal. All right, number 5 for me, I've got Colorado at Georgia Tech. And to me, it's because Colorado might need this game to be bowl eligible. All the offseason hype about the roster rebuild and the team captains and the talent upgrade. And then what do we see from Julian Lewis? You've got a new offense. You've got a new-ish quarterback. 43 incoming transfers, part of the 2 deep for Colorado. They go 9-4 2 years ago. They crashed back down to 3-9 last year. Remember, they had Georgia Tech at home last year to open the season. Were like +3 in the turnover margin at halftime and still trailing in the game. So you knew they were in trouble. But Georgia Tech will not have Hayes King back at quarterback, who was a real problem for the Buffs last year. This game is in Atlanta. It's on September 5th. It's right out of the gate. I think it'll tell us a lot about Colorado and what their season and maybe the future of Coach Prime looks like.
Number 4.
What's less than 1, James?
Week 0.
TCU, North Carolina, the Aer Lingus Classic, August 29th in Dublin. Who can forget Kenan Stadium last year? Michael Jordan, Randy Moss, Lawrence Taylor, all in the house. 41 unanswered by TCU. Maybe the most hyped regular season home opener in the history of North Carolina football, and it completely deflated inside the first quarter. This year, things are different. Now, look, Vegas has set UNC's win total at just 4.5. They replaced Freddie Kitchens, who was awful as the offensive coordinator of North Carolina, with Bobby Petrino. The Bobby Petrino-Bill Belichick marriage should be a lot of fun to watch. Billy Edwards Jr. comes in as the quarterback. He's a Wisconsin and Maryland transfer entering his 6th year of college ball, so he's got a lot of experience. But the offensive line situation around him is very interesting. This is where TCU should have a major advantage in that game. And then look out for Demon June, the running back, who was a true freshman last year at 84 carries for 464 and 2 touchdowns, 5.5 per carry. The last 4 teams to lose the Dublin opener haven't finished above 500 in the same season.
It's been the kiss of death.
It's been the kiss of death. Was for K-State last year, and hopefully it isn't for TCU this year.
I mean, you could even argue it was the same for Iowa State. You know?
Yeah.
They lost like 3 or 4 in a row after they started 5-0. Matt Campbell's off to Penn State.
Yeah.
All right, number 4 for me, I've got Oregon at Oklahoma State. We know how badly this went last year for the Pokes, 69-3. There were a bunch of boosters and like high-level Oklahoma State people that went out to that game because they wanted to see what Gundy was doing with the team. He ends up fired 2 weeks later. This year, Oregon's ranked number 3 in the post-spring top 25 by Sports Illustrated. They've got a quarterback who could have been a top 5 NFL draft pick who returns to college in Dante Moore. The defense was dominant in the spring. And for Oklahoma State, you've got Dante Moore against new coach Eric Morris, the nation's top passer in Drew Mestamaker. That will be like bedlam in Stillwater. That will be a crowd and environment that we haven't seen in 3 or 4 years at Oklahoma State because fans will just be so much on the edge of their seat to see what happens. It's September 12th. I've got Oregon at Oklahoma State at number 4.
Should be a frenzy. Will not be bedlam, though.
Can't be bedlam.
Can't be bedlam.
Number 3.
This is where I go to the Aflac kickoff. Aflac, Baylor, Auburn, September 5th in Atlanta, Georgia. Both programs finished 5-7 last year, which for me gives this game even more juice because both have a lot to prove into this season. This will be the first time Baylor's featured in this game. Auburn's making their 4th appearance in the Aflac kickoff game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Remember, they started off the season last year in Waco in a big-time win for Auburn, but both went on to have 5-7 seasons. They get the prime ABC window, neutral site, Labor Day weekend, huge showcase for the Big 12. Auburn has not had a winning season since 2020. New coach Alex Golesh arrives from USF. He brings his quarterback with him, and Byron Brown, who is a very good dual-threat quarterback, rushed for over 1,000 yards last season at 5.8 per carry with 14 rushing touchdowns. If Dave Aranda and Baylor haven't figured out this defense, we're going to know very quickly with Byron Brown potentially running all over them week 1. This is the 3rd biggest game on the schedule for the Big 12 in the non-conference.
Byron Brown is a dude, by the way. I've seen him in real time. He is a electrifying quarterback. All right, love the variety that we have on our lists. At number 3, I've got the backyard brawl, West Virginia and Pitt. Pitt went 6-2 last year in the ACC. They were in a position to play in the ACC championship game late in the year. They finished 8-5, but one of those 5 losses was to Rich Rod and West Virginia in the non-conference. Pitt leads the all-time series, but West Virginia got them last year 31-24, and even with a 4-8 record last year, one of those 4 wins against their rival. And Rich Rod, you look at his career trajectory, year 2 is a breakthrough year. Everywhere he's been. Arizona, West Virginia the first time, Jacksonville State. Could it be this year? That's going to be a huge game for the Mountaineers with Cam Cook at running back. Hopefully the quarterback situation is cleaned up for West Virginia. They played 5 last year. They've got 2 guys in the running that we'll highlight during our Road to Arlington series later on the show because we highlight West Virginia today. I've got them at number 3 against Pitt.
I bet we're going to have the same top 2. Number 2 for me.
Number 2.
Thank you. Is Arizona State at Texas A&M, September 12th from College Station. This is going to be a great game with Arizona State going into one of the toughest environments in college football in Kyle Field. And when you think about if Arizona State is able to get a win in Kyle Field against A&M, what does that mean for the conference? It's huge because this is obviously a playoff team from last year. Marcel Reed returns for his 3rd season, and he was fantastic last year. Now, he was fantastic with Colin Klein as his offensive coordinator, so we'll see how much different the offense is under Holman Wiggins, who comes in replacing Colin Klein. They also have some continuity on their defensive line, which is their bread and butter under Mike Elko, and that'll be huge in terms of stopping the run, which should be a strength for Arizona State this year. This will be a tough one for Arizona State, but this will be a marquee non-conference game for the Big 12. It's why it's number 2 on my list.
We will have the same top 2. I've got Arizona State at Texas A&M as well, mostly because I think Arizona State can win this game. Texas A&M has Marcel Reed back at quarterback, who was in the Heisman Trophy conversation last year after they started 11-0, but they kind of stumbled in their last couple of games, and they lose 13 players. 13 players were invited to the NFL Combine from Texas A&M, so that highlights just the star power that they do lose outside of Reed. And then for Arizona State, don't sleep on Cutter Boley. Don't sleep on those wide receivers. I think they've improved in the line of scrimmage on the offensive and defensive line. I think the defense will be better. They've got the nation's leading tackler coming in. That's a game I think the Sun Devils can get.
And
Number 1.
And obviously the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world will be BYU and Notre Dame October 17th in Provo. Stakes are high on both ends. Notre Dame loss in Week 7 here could be a playoff fatal for them. Notre Dame will be probably double-digit favorites in every game this season except for their game against BYU in Provo and their game at home against Miami. Other than that, they'll be double-digit favorites in every one of their games, so this will be a huge test for Notre Dame. CJ Carr is back. For his second season, he threw for 2,700 yards and 24 touchdowns with just 6 picks and 25. Carr's the early Heisman Trophy co-favorite plus 750, tied with Texas's Arch Manning. So it's going to be a tough one for BYU at home. They have not played in Provo since 2004. And the win total for Notre Dame is 11.5. Only Notre Dame and Texas Tech have the highest win totals in college football, 11.5. So this will be a tough one for BYU, but big-time feature for the Big 12, especially in the middle of the Big 12 schedule, Week 7.
Yeah, it's going to be everything. It's number one on my list as well. Might be the toughest game on both schedules. Definitely the toughest game on BYU's schedule because they avoid Texas Tech this season. That was a no-brainer. All right, rapid fire. Yesterday we were talking about video games towards the tail end of the show. A little 2-on-2 challenge may or may not happen. Your top 5 all-time rapid fire video games.
Number 5. I keep running away for Taman here.
Number 5.
Number 5 for me is the NFL Blitz on Nintendo 64. This is like the precursor to Madden to a degree in terms of just the explosion of Madden, and this is like the anti-Madden game. Suicide Blitz all the way, baby.
Number 5 for me, Sonic the Hedgehog. A classic platformer, Sega Genesis, defined a generation. It was the first and not last, but the first video game I ever played. Sonic the Hedgehog, a classic at number 5. They're making movies now. It's a whole thing.
Number 4.
Yeah, number 4 for me is NBA Jam. Speaking of Sega, who only makes Sonic now for the most part in Sonic movies, NBA Jam on Sega was my jam. He's on fire! He couldn't hit the broadside of a barn! NFL Blitz and NBA Jam linked together. Very unique unique sports games. Number 4 for me, NBA Jam.
NBA Jam, it was always like 2 really good players, and then who was the third guy
on
your team?
Always.
And now it's all about the big 3. Can you imagine? Number 4 is also an NBA game. I was obsessed with NBA Live. NBA Live. Loved the corner camera angle. I do franchise mode, create players, the whole thing. NBA Live, number 4.
You're such a loser.
Nerd alert.
Number 3.
Grand Theft Auto Vice City. This game was everything in college. You talk about having a fun night, staying at home, maybe having a couple of Modelo's, and playing some Vice City. Whether you played the story or just had some fun creating havoc around Vice City. PlayStation 2, Vice City, Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, San Andreas was good, but I feel like Vice City was my wheelhouse.
Awesome pick. Awesome pick. Number 3 for me is Guitar Hero. We'd rock it, okay? I wasn't very good, though. Like, in my group of friends, there were 4 or 5 of us. I was by far the worst. So, guitar... Why is that so funny, Taman? Taman, Captain Chucklehouse
Terrible
over
number
here.
3.
Guitar Hero?
It's a terrible number 3.
You literally played the guitar, Taman.
Leave the judgments up to me. That is a terrible pick. It's funny. I played Guitar Hero so much, I hate that game.
See? You played it so much.
I hate the game. It's on my bottom 5 list.
Number 2.
I had to go Super Mario Brothers here. Super Mario Brothers 3 is the one where he could fly. Woo-hoo! Game changer. I think it's the best Mario game ever made. 8 worlds of pure creativity. You found that whistle. You could go all the way. And that's the thing about some of the other ones where it's like it took you forever to get to the end of the game. You found the whistle in Super Mario 3. You found those 2 whistles. You go wherever you want, baby. It was... Honestly, I don't know that there's any flaws of Super Mario Brothers 3. And I don't know why I didn't have it 1. Actually, no, I do. I do know why I didn't have it number 1. Go ahead.
Okay, TBD. Number 2 for me is EA Sports College Football 26.
Ooh!
Out with 27 this summer. If your kids are playing 2K, you download 26, you'll never see them again. It's insane. Just the realism. The Road to Glory is very popular in our house. Franchise, Dynasty mode. I can't stop playing. A lot of my play-by-play analyst colleagues can't stop playing. King McClure's top 10,000 in the country. The dude's insane, which is really good, by the way.
Nerd alert!
Yeah, millions and millions of people playing this game. He's a baller. So, yeah, College Football 26. It's ridiculous, guys.
Number 1.
Whatever happened to James Faust? He was a big College Football 26 guy.
Yeah. He still watches.
Great.
Say hello.
See you online, James.
GoldenEye, number 1. 007. This game changed the game. That's the reason it's number 1 on my list. It is the first-person shooter game, at least of substance, the most popular first-person shooter game that really, I think, set in motion, the modern first-person shooter game. But it was iconic. I mean, you We played in college. Like, this is another game we played all the time in college. You could not be Odd Job. You couldn't shoot Odd Job. He was too small. Difficult deal. Or not Odd Job. Who's the small guy? Is it Odd Job?
Yeah, sure.
At any rate, yeah, GoldenEye number 1.
What do you think kids are playing in college now? I know college football 26 is up there. You think it's Fortnite?
So many.
So glad Fortnite didn't make our top 5. For me, it's Madden 07.
07.
07, very specific, because I was in college and there was a group of us. We'd all do a dynasty, and we got so into it. It was like, are we going to Aggieville tonight, or are we staying in, ordering pizza? We've got the draft coming up. It's going to be a big night. Free agency around the corner. We'd battle it out. Madden 07. That's right in our wheelhouse in terms of the millennial crowd. That's number 1 on my list. Phenomenal list, bro. Good stuff. Love the variety. All right, coming up next, Matt Brown, the founder and publisher of Extra Points, joins us via the phone. This is Big 12 Today, exclusively on TuneIn.
Trigg, the tight end in motion. And a quick slant again that's caught, and look out. Kobe Prentice, his second catch of the early hours of this one in the evening.
Yards. The one miscue. Oh, no miscue there. Touchdown, Kobe Prentice. His 6th of the year. Only 17 catches. All he does is catch touchdown.
Offset right as Robertson begins his drive, steps up in the pocket, he pushes vertical, that's complete! Already inside the 30 of Houston.
Sawyer did a great job navigating that pocket, but watch Prentice on the back end. The route on the outside buys up one of the...
We're aided. A bounce from Oklahoma State. Wide open, running free. Kobe Prentice, give the man 6.
Just speed. We're talking about speed. Nothing to it. Just one right pass. Dylan Smith, the safety, who just squatting on it. And something this offensive lacked a week ago versus Arizona State.
Pass again, this time.
Penelope Maria.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo. The commish, Brett Yormark, here at the top of the hour. But first, we chat with Matt Brown from Extra Points, extrapointsmb.com. He is the founder and publisher, FOIA, and find out. We love your stuff, Matt. Big fan. Excited to have you on. We were just chatting during the break that you were the guy that broke that EA Sports was bringing college football 26 back. So I want to hear about that. Also, you've got to be the guy then that has all the 27 leaks, right?
It's funny. EA has gotten better at keeping things a little bit closer to the vest. But it is true. A couple years ago, when I was actually trying to write a story about officially licensed beer and then schools creating their own beer to try to make a little bit of extra money, and one of the schools sent me the licensing proposal for the college football game back in 2023. I look at that and well, this is way more interesting than beer. I'm going to write about this now instead, and didn't realize that you could FOIA and get a lot of that internal video game information. And so we got when the game was coming back, why it was delayed, when it was going to be re-released, a lot of the kind of leaked small information leading up to the game, which is wonderful. But now what I can tell you is that the EA is expected to release some more information about the 27 before the end of the month. They usually do it right around Memorial Day. I've heard a little bit of information about a couple of changes that are likely coming to the Road to Glory mode, but if you enjoyed the last two games, I think you will enjoy some of the incremental changes coming for 27.
Matt, the latest you wrote was the 4 misconceptions about the realities of college athletic collective bargaining. And, we've spent a ton of time on this show talking about how collective bargaining is probably the only path towards, rule creation, uniformity, et cetera. Now, with that being said, and I've acknowledged this throughout, that it doesn't mean it's completely clean and flawless. And I think you identify some of those flaws here in this piece.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree with you that the best way forward, or the clean, to the extent that there is a clean way forward, to have rules that stick,
right,
is to have some kind of CBA. But you're right. There are some major challenges. One of the biggest ones is about the legality of having a collective bargaining agreement. The reason that the NFL and the NBA and our major professional sports leagues are able to have one of these things is because their athletes organized and created a union, which you're not allowed to do in the United States right now if you're not an employee and expect to have that organization survive antitrust challenges. So there would need to be either a change in federal labor law to allow athletes to have limited collective bargaining rights without being employees. There are groups that have that's been done before. Or you have to change and recognize that at least some college athletes are employees, which university presidents have been deeply reticent to do. Absent those two things, you can't have a CBA. And even though there's 6 Twitter lawyers that are constantly agitating for one online, it doesn't, even if that might make things better, that law has to change, and the athletes actually have to get organized, because you can't have management decide who you're going to be bargaining with.
Is this going to happen, in your opinion, at any point, at some point?
I know this makes for terrible sports radio, but I honest to God really do not know. What I can tell you, friends, is that there isn't any meaningful movement right now to change federal labor law to give athletes an opportunity to bargain without making them employees. And I know that because I've talked to staffers for both Democrats and Republicans who are involved in some of the Senate bills. And that's not what the NCAA is lobbying for. It's not what the major conferences are lobbying for. It's not on the high on the to-do list for either Cruz's people, Cantwell's people, or any of the other Republicans that are involved in all this right now. The other big challenge is I don't think that we are especially close to athletes doing this organization work themselves. We're now, 4 or 5 years into the NIL era, and we have athletes.org, which has been around for a little while and has signed up several athletes, but not even close to half of current college football players, and many of the people that they did sign up have graduated and are no longer active. So I don't think we're especially close. Now, if maybe the CSC blocks a bunch of these contracts and that the legal system actually allows them to do that, and hundreds of college football players aren't going to get paid, then maybe you do see a work stoppage, and then you do see something closer to what you need to do to get this kind of CBA. But I don't think we're that close to that right now.
Talk with Matt Brown here from Extra Points. Matt, curious for your thoughts on the Brendan Sorsby situation.
I think that the first thought that I have is that I feel bad for him, and I feel bad for the thousands of other college students, mostly young men, that I think are in similar positions right now where they've developed addictions, where they've developed a compulsive behavior. Even if Sorsby can afford it, because he's throwing $250 on this pitch, $4 on this pitch. And he's signed $1 million contract. Most people in that situation don't have that kind of money and could end up in really major problems. I look at that and think that's a societal issue, and I hope the folks involved can get some help. I understand the legal challenges here. This is just me personally, like not speaking as a legal analyst or predicting what's going to happen, but as a fan, I think it is unacceptable for an athlete to bet on their own team, even if you are not betting very much money and even if you're barely playing, because that raises very significant game integrity concerns. My biggest concern with sports gambling, I've said this a couple of times in Extra Points, I think this is a bigger existential threat to college sports than anything that has to do with NIL.
Wow.
Anything that has to do with player compensation. If fans, even if enough fans have reason to believe that the games aren't always on the up and up, the entire enterprise, the entire industry could face conflicts that they'll take decades to recover from. And we're getting close to that point. So if that's what Sorsby did, I think there has to be very meaningful consequences. He hired the best lawyer in the game, and maybe he'll be able to get him out of it. But I'm very concerned that he's not the only guy that's done this.
Yeah. So you think that's happening right now? I mean, essentially you're talking about point shaving, and the FBI had that giant bust of college basketball players just last year, a couple of years ago. But we've never really seen it like on the surface when it comes to college football.
It's been decades, right? And part of the reason is because it's harder to shave points in college football because there's 22 guys on the field, and there's not every one of those guys can have a neat, exact outcome on what's happening. Now, if you're a wide receiver and you're trying to manipulate some prop bets, you could decide to drop a pass, and that has happened historically, and I imagine it will continue to happen. It's easier to do. And it's easier to make money from in college basketball. And what I can tell you guys is, there was a huge nationwide FBI investigation, and we had over a dozen college basketball players picked up for this. And what you'll notice, and you look at those indictments and look at who the NCAA pointed to, almost all of the basketball players from last season were not playing at places like Texas Tech or Ohio State or Alabama. They were playing at low majors, New Orleans, Horizon League schools, Big West kind of schools. And everything that I have learned from doing Extra Points professionally the past couple of years has reinforced the idea to me that if you wanted to shave points at like an A-Sun school or an NEC school or some low major, and you weren't so exceptionally greedy that you were trying to get your buddies to put down $300,000 on these games, you can get away with it. And I believe that continues to happen. I don't know if it's like 40% of games or anything, but when you look in the college basketball world where the players aren't getting $1 million, and then more importantly, the trainers aren't getting $1 million, and the people around them, the assistant coaches, the players' buddies, there's a very high incentive to participate in this world, and it's harder to get caught.
Well said. Matt Brown joining us here from Extra Points. Matt, I'm curious for your thoughts on this battle between the CSC and Nebraska, and some of the verbiage that's come out of the Big Ten and the SEC. And I guess I'm wondering why this isn't a bigger story.
It's a good question, and I've struggled sometimes in how to best write about this in a way that's not overly technical or just kind of goes over the head of a lot of fans. I think the big structural challenge here is that you have athletic directors and coaches and presidents and power brokers at these biggest schools, the Big Ten, SEC, but the whole Power Four, spent millions of dollars agitating for the CSC system as part of the House settlement. The thinking, right, we need to control labor costs, we need to be in compliance with federal antitrust law, and we're going to spend an enormous amount of money and political capital to build this system. And you didn't need to be Encyclopedia Brown to look at that system coming out of the House settlement and think, I don't think this is going to work. I don't think that everyone's going to sign up for this. I don't think it's going to have the legal standing. I don't think that the salary cap is going to hold water. And that's, of course, exactly what happened. And I think part of the reason it's happening is because the entire system is built on a fiction. You look at the contracts from the Big Ten for these House settlement rev share payments. I have a couple of them in our library. And they're explicit about this isn't a pay-to-play contract. This is a paying for marketing promotions and publicity rights. And you and I and God know that that's not true, right? And because you frame them that way, that limits the enforceability of some of these deals. And then lo and behold, everybody cheated. Everybody. There's not a single Power 4 team in the country, I think, that is spending less than $21.2 million on athlete compensation for next year. I don't believe a lot of the more hyperbolic roster valuation numbers for football and basketball, but everyone's going to be over 20 million when you combine football, men's and women's basketball. So I say all of this to say it's difficult for me to care as much about the blocking and tackling of the CSC lawsuits and everything else, because fundamentally we have a group of schools that say that they want rules and are willing to spend enormous amounts of money to have rules, and then will steadfastly commit to not following those rules. And I think that's really been the case in college football since 1905, since Princeton and Yale were the Bagman champions, and Ohio State wasn't born yet, and it was the Paleolithic era of college football. Until that changes, I don't really know if it really matters what happens with the CSC, because if you move to conference-centric governance, well, we had that before World War II. We know how it works. It led to commissioners getting fired and schools cheating. And the incentives to do that are even greater. I don't know how you move to a world to force people that have no interest in following rules to follow rules.
Yeah, totally agree. ExtraPointsMB.com. Matt Brown, founder and publisher of Extra Points. ExtraPointsMB.com. Again, Matt, we're big fans. Love the way just your writing style, the meat of what you're reporting on. It's outstanding. So thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for having me. Take care, guys.
Matt Brown joining us here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. Coming up next, Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner. Also, it's our Road to Arlington series that continues today. We launched this at the start of the week. We've touched on Oklahoma State and Colorado. Today we hit on West Virginia. Biggest question marks, biggest gamble, trap games, 3-game stretch, the whole deal. So that's still on the way here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are brought to you, the full-time fan, by our friends at Modelo here on TuneIn and on Big 12 Studios.
Scrambling, throws across his body, and it's intercepted! The senior, Lander Barton!
Cash hit in the red zone. Outside pressure. Robertson got out of it. Still fighting, but the second effort hits home. And Utah has its third sack of the night.
Henderson in the pocket. Free runner coming. He's drilled. Lander Barton right up the gut. Hammered him. Utah doing this against a good run defense the last couple of years. Flies in there to Lander Barton. All the defensive guys involved. Snowden and Barton both a touchdown. Blitz comes. Anderson's throw is knocked out. John Henry Daly got the ball out.
Big 12 Today with Ari and James. Monday through Friday, 8A to 11A Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
Back inside Big 12 Today here on Big 12 Radio, brought to you, the full-time fan, by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Our Road to Arlington series continues today as we highlight the West Virginia Mountaineers. But first, he's Ari Timken, I'm James Westling, and we welcome in the architect of the most aggressive conference in America, the commissioner, Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark, joining us in studio. First, great to see you. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thrilled to be here, guys, and it's great to see both of you.
Yeah, we appreciate you being with us. Let's start with, probably the biggest story for Big 12 fans, and that's the deal with the Redbird Capital, which is extremely exciting, especially when you kind of look at the Big 12's specific partnership, the league partnership with Redbird. Can you just kind of give like a 50,000-foot view of why this made sense and what you like about the deal the most?
Well, I'll start off by saying it took a while to get there. We had explored lots of different avenues and options, and ultimately we came down to wanting to create something that was somewhat bespoke and different and ownable. So yes, we announced our partnership with Redbird. It is a strategic partnership, and at the core, it's about how do we create value for our member institutions, and the best way to do that is through our commercial business. And Redbird has an incredible ecosystem that they're a part of, and we've already tapped into it already. I mean, they were behind the scenes. They were the facilitator of the PayPal deal. They helped us consummate a fantastic partnership with New Era. They also were the ones that facilitated the Players Era partnership. And that was all being done informally. So we said, why don't we double down? So it's a three-pronged approach. Let's continue to do commercial deals and tap into the ecosystem that Redbird has. Two, let's put some resources on our balance sheet. So if and when there's opportunities to invest in revenue-generating companies that provide short-term value and long-term value to the conference and our members, let's explore that. And lastly, and certainly not at the core of the partnership, was a safety net of an opt-in capital solution for our member institutions. And it's really up to them whether they want to pursue it or not. It's kind of arm's length of the conference. And that's kind of an insurance policy for each of our schools to determine they want to tap into or not, given the unexpected that we seem to face quite often in this industry. But I'm excited about it. The Redbird guys are fantastic. As I said, we've been working together for quite some time, and effectively we made the partnership more formal. And one thing that's a very interesting dynamic when you think about the ecosystem of Redbird is they are the second biggest shareholder in CBS Paramount. And we also know that the WBD deal should be closing sometime this fall. So it's not a bad thing to be part of that family also. So all in all, I'm excited about it, and I know we'll do some special things together.
Yeah, the impact on the media rights and the television side, and you hit it there. We noted right away that Redbird is the second biggest shareholder in Paramount, which is CBS.
Yeah, 22%, I believe.
So. What? I guess how much of an impact did that have on making this whole thing work, and just what could that mean long term potentially?
Well, listen, it was value add. It wasn't the driver, but it was certainly value add for us. And when you look at all the companies that they interface with, certainly that one stood out in a big way for us. And listen, we're going to be back in the marketplace in January of 30 for our next TV deal. And for me, it's always nice to have optionality and, to be aligned with lots of different players. I mean, no different than what we did with our sub-licensing for men's basketball. I want people to like us now, and then hopefully they'll love us when we become free agents. And, that move we made with sub-licensing to bring NBC Peacock in and to bring TNT in addition, to CBS, who had been working with us, and of course ESPN and Fox, gave us unprecedented promotional support this year that drove our ratings up. So that move was great for the immediacy of it, but it also got people to sample us, different networks and partners. So I look at the partnership with Redbird in the same way.
On that note, when you look at 2030, it feels like there are so many more players in that space than there had been previously. I mean, CBS, really on the college basketball side, and then in football, it's been Fox and ESPN. Now, TNT is in on it. Obviously, CBS wants to get deeper. NBC. What about Apple and Netflix and Amazon? They're being much larger players in that space, in sports space. Forecast what 2030 looks like and how many more players there are, which obviously would increase the value of the TV rights.
Listen, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think there'll be a lot of players. I think, the digital players, the streamers, are going to be much more active than they were in our last deal. And, we as a conference, myself, the ADs, the board will have to kind of go in the lab and figure out, what is the best path forward. But having optionality is, for me, a necessity. And knowing that there are different players, that we can speak to. And let's face it, I'm in the relationship marketing mode right now. Trust me, there isn't a player out there that I haven't contacted, chatted with, and, just in an effort to be ready. In all the right places. No different than when I got here, I had some pre-existing relationships with ESPN Fox, which certainly benefited, the conference when we went early. And my goal is to set the table now, and establish those relationships, if I don't have them already, in order to be ready for 30. So I'm excited about that moment.
Yeah, us too. Are you for or against the 24 team college football playoff, and why or why not?
Well, listen, first of all, I've been on record to say, in theory, in concept, I like the 24. We obviously have our spring business meetings next week. We'll be with our football coaches and ADs, and I'm sure that will be, one of the topics that we discuss. Having said that, I do like 24 for a couple of reasons. One, I think too many good teams are being left out. Okay, and we saw that over the last couple of years. So the obvious is more access, I think, is great. And more access would be great for the Big 12. Aside from that, I think coaches and how rosters are being built and the cost of rosters are all based on what does it cost to be one of 12. And I think going to 24 takes some heat out of the system. Coaches are no longer judged based on are you in the CFP or not. Now it's just be in the top 25. Okay, and good things can happen. And same things with the same concept when it comes to the cost of building a roster. Right now it's about spending the resources to be one of 12. That changes dramatically when you got to be top 25. And by the way, how many schools are going to continue to invest
Right. Great point.
year in and year out if they're not getting into the CFP? So for the obvious, I like the access. But I also think that it takes some heat out of the system, and I think that's good for everyone.
Behind the scenes, you're obviously working, with all the other commissioners, and specifically, Sankey and Petiti, who are in many ways driving the bus here. How likely is it? Because it seems like, Petiti wants 24, Sankey is stuck on 16. Do you think it goes from 12 to 16 to 24? Do you think we get to what would be the impetus for maybe Sankey coming off of the 16 piece, or Petiti going to and saying 16 is okay?
Well, I read this morning, and again, no different than fans, that Tony, coming out of the spring business meetings, referenced that it's 24 or nothing. Okay, that's effectively what he said. And Greg, obviously, he's got to do what he needs to do, and what's in the best interest of the SEC, and I'm sure he's going to have those conversations next week at his spring business meetings. Candidly, from where I sit, the management committee of the CFP just needs to roll up our sleeves and do the work, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done around 24. The unintended consequences of going 24. What does that mean? I've said before, what are the economics? Can we start modeling what those look like? Because if you go to 24, you get rid of your champ game. And the champ game for the Big 12 is very valuable, okay? And I'm not in this deal just to stay whole.
Right.
I want there to be additive revenue and additive economics that we can all share in, okay? So we have to do the work. Again, the concept of 24 I like a lot, but you got to roll up your sleeves and do the work and make sure it proves out.
Yeah. Looking at all the projected 24 team field and who would have been in last year, the Big 12 is very well represented, which is exciting to us. The Big 12 would have been very well represented as it already was in the NCAA.
And more marquee event in U.S. sports than what takes place during March Madness.
Same, yeah.
I mean, it captivates fans from across the country, from all different ages and backgrounds, and I think it's fantastic. And it's a wonderful event. And even before taking the role as commissioner, I was a huge fan. Having said that, modest expansion was certainly what I was looking for, and I think that's what ultimately happened. And I do believe that the Power Four, but specifically the Big 12, will be a beneficiary of that. Those schools that were somewhat on the cusp, like Cincinnati last year, in fact, I've said it before, I'll say it again, second only to the NBA. And so I think it's good. I think it's really good for us.
When it comes to football, the NFL draft was extremely good for the Big 12. You know, Texas Tech with 8 draft picks, that sets a record. I mean, 38 total selections overall, 6 in the first round. Just sort of curious for your overall thoughts on football, how it's performing, what surprises you, and how much you think that continues to grow over the next few years.
Our schools are making great investments in football. We understand the importance of football, and it's the anchor, really, candidly, to everything we do. Yeah. And I like our trajectory. You know, our teams are investing, they're getting better. Obviously, it's been a very deep conference for the last couple of years, but you are starting to see some schools emerge to the top, which I think is critically important. You know, parity is wonderful, but you want some of those outlier schools that are part of the national conversation year in and year out, and you're starting to see that now in our conference. We were active in the portal. I think many of our teams got better. At least I expect that to be the case next year. And I'm excited about what's in front of us for football. Just commenting on the draft, 38 student athletes in the draft. I thought that was a great number for us. It shows that student athletes are voting yes for the Big 12. They like our product. They like our style of play. So I'm excited about it. I think football is going to be a big highlight for us next year.
When it comes to the spring sports, we've got the commish, Brett Yormark, is with us in studio. You know, the Big 12 has had a landmark year with several moments, like the Big 12, Arizona State, Texas Tech softball game broke records for the Big 12 softball title, baseball in the thick of their postseason tournament. So, what has this spring done for the conference in terms of kind of adding one more layer to being a complete powerhouse, completely rounded league?
Well, it's a great comment. I've said all along that I think there's real upside in Olympic sports for us. Even as you think about 2030, there's been so much value around football. And you guys have heard it before. I think basketball is totally undervalued, and I think people are starting to realize that now. But I also think Olympic sports are undervalued. And effectively, or at least in the past, it's been a bit of a throw-in. But you think about volleyball right now and women's soccer. You think about softball, to your point, in baseball, wrestling. Those are a real emerging sports on the national landscape and getting a lot of attention. And you're right. Our championship softball game set an all-time record. When you think about ratings, we have 4 of our teams in the super regionals that start, I think, tomorrow. We've got 5 baseball teams in the top 25. In fact, I'm heading to Arizona tomorrow night to see some games on Friday and Saturday. So the spring Olympic sports activity for us has been fantastic. The results have been even better, and I think it's an area of growth for us at the conference.
Yeah, and I mean, just to give you some credit here, the emergence of women's lacrosse, the Big 12 under your watch invested in women's lacrosse, and that's seemed to bear some fruit. Obviously Florida getting the Final Four last year, Colorado with an incredible run, losing to Northwestern, and a crazy game in the Elite Eight. Beach volleyball, TCU winning a national championship. So it's clear that you have seen growth opportunities in those sports as well.
I think it's a major upside opportunity for us, and we're going to continue to double down, storyteller around our Olympic sports more so than ever before, and our schools are making the necessary investments, which I'm happy to see. Beach volleyball I'm a big fan of. I think that's a big growth sport as well. So I think we're on the right track when you think about our Olympic sports and where they're going.
So Brett, a couple of times we've been able to ask you kind of some get to know you questions. So let's wrap with this. You can either give us, your top 3 targets for the next wave of conference realignment, or let's say you're getting ready for the next big negotiation.
I eat a peanut butter sandwich on whole wheat for lunch, and probably 5 out of 7 nights I do chicken and vegetables. So that is effectively my go-to every day, because I'm in deal mode every day, and I got to feel right, and my wife does a fantastic job making sure that I'm eating well and taking my vitamins, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't deviate much from that. But that's been part of my regimen a long time.
This guy makes fun of me all the time because I never deviate from 8 hours of sleep.
All right, I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
Got to figure out a way.
You don't get 8 hours of sleep at night, do you?
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't.
No. You get 5?
I'm usually around 6.
Okay.
6.5.
Me too.
And I work out every morning, and just to get ready, and but 6.5 seems to work for me.
The last one for me is, you famously have this whiteboard in your office, and plenty of ideas on it. Some you're executing on, some you're not. What's on the whiteboard right now? What are some of the big ideas, whether they're going to be executable or not?
Well, it starts with truly how do we as a conference create value for our member institutions? That's the header. We're in the value creation business. And then the second header is making sure that as we think about value creation, let's make sure we focus on what matters most. I just did an offsite with my leadership team, and those were some common themes. So I'm always thinking about how do I create value? How do I keep building our brand and our profile and narrative? How do I continue to drive our commercial business? Because that's going to provide real resources, to our schools. How do I work with our media partners to make sure I keep pushing them, to give us the right narrative? I mean, this past year, what ESPN and Fox did for us was fantastic. When you think about big noon kickoffs, which are like advertorials or game days or the windows they're giving us. I mean, it all comes back down to value creation. And I'm focused on every day. And there's a lot of things on my whiteboard, but I'm becoming more disciplined and really focusing on the things that matter most and are going to drive the needle for the conference. And that's what my colleagues and I are focused on every day.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. Number one, we are huge fans of everything going on with the league and the work that you do, putting this conference at the forefront of all the national conversation. So thank you.
Each and every week. So thank you for all your efforts. You guys know you're a big part of our family and what we're doing to move this thing forward. So thank you both.
We love it. We love it, man. Happy to be here. That is the Commissioner, Brett Yormark, joining us here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, heard exclusively on TuneIn. You're watching us on Big 12 Studios. The road to Arlington is around the corner as we highlight West Virginia, biggest question marks, gambles, trap games. We break it all down. This is Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio and Big 12 Studios.
Latrell McCutcheon is a bad dude.
And
McCutcheon absolutely changes this ball game.
Levitt thought about taking a shot. Instead, he takes his shot from Latrell McCutcheon. And McCutcheon with bad intentions on that hit on Levitt.
Mack, the second, is playing that defensive end spot. And Buren crushed on the corner blitz. There's Latrell McCutcheon Sr. First sack of the season, and it was a loud one.
Out of an empty set. Murphy finds Wells, can't hold on. And they rule that incomplete. Latrell McCutcheon, who Willie Fritz believes is an NFL player with the PBU.
Well, he is some player, not afraid to make tackles either.
High snap. Welch wrestled down the backfield. That's Latrell McCutcheon,
A willing tackler. You know, he's a guy he only goes about 185 pounds at 6'1".
Another bad snap and exchange, and McClain has to run for it. He lost his hat. McCutcheon absolutely changes this ball game.
That's 126 nationally. Awful. Quick toss. Man. Gets popped. The ball is out. And it's out of bounds. Two leaping Cougars defenders. And Latrell McCutcheon and Sione Fotu
Commissioner Yormark just joined us in studio. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. If you missed it, we'll replay it right here on the channel on Big 12 Radio later on this afternoon, part of our Big 12 Power Hour. Each and every day, our show replays, and then after that, it starts at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central Time. So you'll hear Brett again at around 2:45 Eastern, 1:45 Central. The team that we highlight today on replay is Iowa State, the post-spring preview, talking with Jimmy Rogers and breaking down what the very new-look Cyclones will field this season. Our road to Arlington today is West Virginia. So here in about 10, we'll dive into the biggest question marks, biggest gamble, trap games, biggest game, which is different than a trap game, biggest 3-game stretch to define the season. Look at you, man. Show manager, stage manager, engineer, all wrapped up into one fishing shirt. Nicely done, dude.
I noticed you didn't say co-host.
Well, co-host is a given. That's natural. But in that moment, it was floor manager, stage, show manager, stage manager. What was your number one takeaway from what we just heard with the commish?
Well, I mean, he doesn't just show up to a 2030 TV negotiation. Like when we think about the most important future, the most important asset to securing the future of the Big 12. And you went to K-State, I went to Kansas. Everybody listening to this, presumably or watching this, went to a Big 12 school. So all about what the Big 12 can do to try to catch up to the SEC and Big 10 in terms of revenue. Brett Yormark is doing everything he possibly can. He mentioned, building. He's in the marketing and relationships mode right now. So he has relationships. The Redbird deal is not a be all end all for the Big 12 will sign an exclusive deal with Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount, but that's one of those relationships. He's got relationships already with ESPN and Fox. He's expanding those relationships based on what he said, not specifically, but Apple, Amazon, Netflix, right? Like so, he is building on relationships, creating touch points and opportunities to reach out and build legitimate relationships with those assets. In order to be ready for 30. He also mentioned he thinks that Olympic sports could be a huge factor in the play for 2030. And this is why, softball is so important. It's why he established beach volleyball and women's lacrosse. And so I think, we're looking at this from a football lens, but the added value aspect to this could be, oh, by the way, you're getting softball, which has 1 million viewers for our softball championship, or baseball, which has X amount of, right? So I just think all of the components that go into it, well, I can't wait to see what 2030 looks like in terms of TV. And then, of course, there's the ticking time bomb of the ACC, which we obviously didn't talk about with Brett, but is something that's very much there. And you better believe that Brett sees that. But I think the writing's on the wall there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Big 12 stock is rising. And when you piece together all the moves that the league has made, and I love that he noted that Redbird and Weatherford were behind the PayPal deal and the other deals, the New Era deal.
Players Era.
That ESPN is just re-upped with, and the league getting 8 bids to the Players Era Festival, which is that non-conference men's basketball tournament out in Vegas. To me, like the Big 12 is knocking on the door of very much closing the gap with a college football national champion. Like the Big 12 hasn't won a college football national championship since 2005, and it was a school that's no longer in the league. But, and he said it there, it's important to have an alpha. It's important to have schools that are in the conversation every year. Well, last year that was Texas Tech. The last 2 years that has been BYU, even though somehow, some way, they've been left out of the college football playoff. Like if that happens, the gap no longer exists. Or if it does, it's very small. Like that's the only thing missing.
Right, and on that note, he mentioned the 2014 playoff. He is an advocate of that, and I think what he mentioned when we sort of talked about how do we get there, because right now you've got Petiti on one side and Sankey on the other side, and they're both sort of unwilling to give ground. And he mentioned, the management of the College Football Playoff Committee needs to roll up our sleeves and get to work. Quote, what are the economics? Can we start modeling what those look like? If you go to 24, you get rid of your champ game. in the champ game for the Big 12 is very valuable, end quote. That was the exact quote he gave us, right? So we talked about the value of the SEC championship. The Big 12, we know this, has a ton of value too. So, like, so much of what Yormark does is model to look at not fully give into a 2014 playoff would be by showing them that there's more value in that without the SEC championship game. Because right now it doesn't feel like they believe that.
Mm-hmm. With a 24-team playoff, and when you say model it out, I don't see the Big 12 being supportive of eliminating the Big 12 conference championship game without the guarantee of automatic bids.
Right.
I don't see a 23 at-large bids and one group of 6 or whatever the proposal was that was out there. That just seems bananas to me.
That's an interesting question. Because, yeah, the Big 10 is basically saying 23 open bids with 24th being given to a group of 5.
Because they believe they can get like 10, 8, 9, 10 at-large bids.
I said this with the 12-team playoff, and I'll say it with 24. I would love to see what it looks like in actuality. What's the over-under on playoff teams for the Big 12 without any automatic bids? What's, is it 2.5? And what do you think the Big 12 ends up with in terms of the over-under? Because it feels like if you leave it up to the committee will go in favor of the SEC and the Big 10 in most cases. Now, I say that, but, I mean, that's a really good question, James. What would benefit the Big 12 more, automatic bids or an open canvas?
So if just based off of last year's final regular season AP top 25, the automatic bids would benefit the Big 12 more because Houston would have been in with automatic bids. Houston would have been, shocking, the second team left out of a 23 at-large scenario if you're just ranking the top 25 teams.
And you're talking about how many bids for the Big 12, automatic?
Automatic, I think they had it at 5.
So 5 for the Big 12, 5 for the ACC.
Yeah, I'd have to do more math, but there were 5 teams from the Big 12 that would have been in with that model. Arizona, Houston, BYU, Texas Tech, and I'm missing an obvious one that finished towards the top.
Utah?
Yeah. Yes.
5?
Utah, Arizona, Houston, BYU, Texas Tech. And then, if you look at the top 25 and it was the at-large model, Texas Tech would have been in, BYU would have been in, Utah would have been in, and Arizona. So you would have had 4. And Arizona would have been right on that cut line. Then you leave it you put it in the committee's hands. Do they put Missouri in? Do they put Georgia Tech in? Do they put Iowa or Tennessee in? It's the same problem you have now with too much power in terms of who gets in and who gets left out.
It looks like what I've seen would be, this is from last year, from October. They're saying 4 for each Power 4 league and then 2 for the group of 6. That's just not going to happen. I don't see a situation in which the Big 10 and the SEC agree to a deal that isn't skewed in their favor.
Yeah.
With more automatic.
And that's
bids.
only 20.
Yeah.
Totally agree. All right, coming up next here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. Love this series we're putting together, The Road to Arlington, the path for each and every Big 12 school. We highlight West Virginia today with the biggest question marks, biggest gamble, biggest 3-game stretch that could define year 2 for Rich Rod and the Mountaineers. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio.
Broken up. Latrell McCutcheon is a bad dude.
Pat McCutcheon absolutely changes this ball game.
Levitt thought about taking a shot. Instead, he takes his shot from Latrell McCutcheon. And McCutcheon with bad intentions on that hit on Levitt.
Mack, the second, is playing that defensive end spot. And Buren crushed on a corner blitz. There's Latrell McCutcheon, senior. First sack of the season, and it was a loud one.
Out of an empty set. Murphy finds Wells, can't hold on. And they rule that incomplete. Latrell McCutcheon, who Willie Fritz believes is an NFL player with the PBU.
Well, he is some player, not afraid to make tackles either. High snap. Welch wrestled down the backfield. That's Latrell McCutcheon, a willing tackler. You know, he's a guy he only goes about 185 pounds and 6'1".
Another bad snap and exchange, and McClan has to run for it. He lost his hat. McCutcheon absolutely changes this ball game.
That's 126 nationally. Awful. Quick toss. Man. Gets popped. The ball is out, and it's out of bounds. Two leaping Cougars defenders, and Latrell McCutcheon and Sione Fotu.
UCF will be the team that we highlight tomorrow, part of our Road to Arlington series, powered by Modelo. Cody Nespor, the digital content producer at Gold and Blue Nation, will be our guest later on during the program as we dive into the West Virginia Mountaineers today. The road to Arlington, biggest question marks, gambles, trap games, and more. So let's dive in. Biggest question mark for West Virginia year 2 of the Rich Rod era after they go 4-8 last season?
Well, I've got a few, but I'll start with the quarterback. It's Scotty Fox or Michael Hawkins. And look, I think we saw some decent things from Scotty Fox last year. After, I think, his first 2 passes were intercepted in his first game as a true freshman. But they brought in Michael Hawkins for a reason. And though Scotty Fox possesses some of the skills necessary to run Rich Rod's offense, they brought in Michael Hawkins to run Rich Rod's offense, and he's tailor-made for it. So right now, Rich Rod has said basically that he trusts either of those guys and that they're both competing into fall camp. But I think Hawkins has to win this job. Otherwise, that spells a big problem for West Virginia because they brought him in here to win this job. So QB1 is the biggest question mark for me.
Yeah, that's where I start too, the quarterback room. And when you play 5 different guys the previous season, that's naturally going to be a major question mark. And Michael Hawkins had a really good game his lone start last year at Oklahoma. That was their Armed Forces Bowl game against Navy, threw for $162 and 3 touchdowns. But Scotty Fox got better as the season progressed, won the Houston game, an upset as a true freshman, and closed the year as the starter. And in the spring, he's been the number 1 guy. It's a wide open race, but in terms of who's been more accurate, like it's been Scotty Fox. He has a better grasp of the offense, but Michael Hawkins is the more talented in terms of raw athletic ability. There's a reason why he was a high 4-star out of the Dallas area, out of high school. But in the spring, like, he missed badly on several throws, way over the receiver's head in the spring game that has fans up in arms. Post-spring, it does sound like the coaching staff still sees Hawkins as the leader because of just how talented he is. But again, same story as last year. We're at the end of May, and we don't know who the quarterback's going to be. So that is question mark numero uno for me. All right, biggest gamble for West Virginia this year?
For me, there's a couple of them, but I'm going to go with the secondary. They have now completely rebuilt the entire secondary for the second straight year under Rich Rod. This was one of the worst units in college football in 2024 and wasn't much better in 2025. It's the highest risk single bet West Virginia is making in 2026. And it probably isn't getting nearly enough attention because all of the oxygen around West Virginia is around their offense because it's Rich Rod and its offense is where the money is made. You know, again, 24 and 25 were absolute disasters with their pass defense. And so now when you talk about a gamble, I mean, Rich Rod can't strike out again. They finished 14 out of 16 teams in the Big 12, West Virginia did, and a big reason for that was their secondary. Rodriguez and defensive coordinator Zach Alley are attempting the same thing they tried in 25, a full secondary reset through the portal, except this time every single player from the 25 two deep is gone. Everybody. So we'll see if they made the right gambles this time. Latimer is their nickel. Sam, probably the most praised addition in the secondary this offseason. And he's kind of the quarterback of the defense in terms of his position that he plays in Zach Alley's defense. Kamari Wilson's a guy that comes in as the box safety. He's a redshirt senior from Memphis. And then there's Matt Sieg, the true freshman 4-star free safety who could be the starting free safety for the team this year and could see some offensive snaps. So I like the potential there, but it's a huge gamble in terms of just completely resetting the deck of the secondary yet again.
2 for 2. We've got back-to-back hits.
Wow.
I had youth in the secondary as my biggest gamble. You know, only 20% of their defensive snaps from last year are returning. They were really bad with third down defense, and a lot of that was on the ground, sure, but also teams were picking up third downs through the air at will. And to me, I highlight the fact that they're expected to start that true freshman you noted, Matt Sieg, who was a late flip from Penn State when James Franklin got let go, and then when they hired Matt Campbell. He was the National High School Player of the Year in his state, and the staff says that they think eventually he can be an all Big 12 guy, but just starting a true freshman at a very valuable position, especially with so many veteran Big 12 quarterbacks that you look across the conference are known for picking apart defenses. That's a major red flag to me. And then Kamari Wilson's like their number 1 portal guy. He was an all-league guy in the American at Memphis, and he's played at Florida, and he's played at Arizona State, but I don't think he made the top 5 of our newcomer series because there's a lot of other really strong newcomers in the secondary. So the gamble is right there in plain sight with just how young the secondary is going to be. So I've got the same gamble All right, trap game.
Trap game for me, October 17th against Cincinnati. You've got a stretch here with Arizona at home, followed by Cincinnati, and then 2 straight road games at TCU, at Texas Tech. So when you think about 3 out of those 4 games are against teams that figure to be in the top half of the league, including Texas Tech and Arizona that should be in the top 5 of the league, with Cincinnati nestled in between there. That's why it's the trap game for me. It is the one opponent that you should beat out of a sea of really difficult games, including 2 road games at TCU and Texas Tech. So that one could bite you if you're not ready for it.
Just confirming that I sent this game to Anthony, our video producer, before the show. We're 3 for 3.
Wow.
I have Cincinnati as well. And it's because when I look at their schedule, like they open against Coastal Carolina, then they play UT Martin, then they play a neutral site game in Charlotte against Virginia, with Oklahoma State at home to open the Big 12 season. At Iowa State, home to Arizona. There is a path, I think, for West Virginia to get off to a really hot start with Cam Cook at running back, with, we assume, Hawkins at quarterback. Even if it is Fox, they should be much more well-positioned at that position. So I'm with you. I've got Cincinnati October 17th because after that, you've got this big game looming at TCU. That'll be the revenge game for Cam Cook, who started his career at TCU and then transferred to Jacksonville State and now West Virginia. Michael Hawkins, if he's the quarterback, he's a Dallas kid, so he'll have a ton of friends and family at that game and have it circled on his calendar. Those are your top 2 Pat White, Steve Slayton-esque, they're hoping, weapons that have that game circled on their calendar. So Cincinnati at home is my trap game as well.
I have a feeling we're also going to have the exact same biggest game here.
Okay.
But then I think our lists will deviate on the 3-game swing stretch. I could be wrong, but I'm assuming that you also have Texas Tech on November 7th at the biggest game of the schedule for West Virginia. For me, it's not just the fact that Texas Tech is going to be the biggest game on most of these teams' schedules. West Virginia lost to Texas Tech the last game of the regular season last year, 49-0. This year, do I expect West Virginia to beat Texas Tech? No, especially in Lubbock. However, this game's a measuring stick. How far have you come, right? Like, will we see that this program has improved year 2 under Rich Rod? Because if they lay another egg against Texas Tech, they might look better on paper. Things might seem better. But if they don't, 49-0 is 49-0, right? You have to have a closer game against a team that is the standard bearer of excellence in the Big 12 in football.
We do have one deviation here.
Oh.
I did not have Texas Tech simply because of how bad it was last year and the fact that it's in Lubbock. I chalk it up to an L. I don't see any way West Virginia goes on the road and pulls that upset.
And I do too, but I think it's the biggest game in terms of just the measuring stick for them. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going to win, but are you going to lose 49-0?
Or are you going to keep it close?
There's a wind there, not for West Virginia, but for everybody else, somewhere between 49-0 and winning, right?
Sure. Totally. So the biggest game I have is October 24th at TCU, the game that's right after Cincinnati, because of the Michael Hawkins Dallas piece and the Cam Cook redemption game. But also,
good call.
I wouldn't be shocked. I'm really high on West Virginia, higher than most. I see 6-2 in their first 8 games. I could see them at 7-1. If they win that TCU game, they could maybe be 8-0 going into their bye week before they play Texas Tech. Like, their toughest games are the back half of the season, much like Cincinnati the last couple of years. Cincinnati starts 7-1 last year because of the way their schedule shaped up. I could see a similar path for West Virginia. So I've got the West Virginia Mountaineers at TCU October 24th as my biggest game. Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. Still to come, our Road to Arlington series. Forgot one. Biggest 3-game stretch to define the season.
The 3-game swing stretch. I actually have it as the first 3 games of the season. Week 1, Coastal Carolina. I figured this one would be different for the two of us. September 5th. Week 2 against UT Martin, September 12th. And then Virginia on September 19th in Charlotte. Odd to say that the first 3 games would be their 3-game swing spot. But if the goal for this team is to get to a bowl game, that can be made much easier with a difficult but not daunting non-conference here. Like, Coastal Carolina's been a consistent group of 5, group of 6 program in college football, but you got to win that game. And then Virginia, remember, Virginia was in the ACC championship game last year. They finished 11-3, ranked in both major polls, and then they enter 2026 with both Mizzou's Bo Prabula and Eli Holstein from Pitt. So without Chandler Morris, Tony Elliott has this program legitimately moving in the right direction. So, like, again, to me, the 3-game swing stretch is the first 3 games, because if you're going to get to 6 wins, you got to start 3-0, and these are not unwinnable non-conference games, but they're also not the easiest. Now, UT Martin is, but Coastal Carolina and Virginia is not. So for me, this is about the math of bowl eligibility, which is made much easier, more straightforward if they start 3-0 in their non-conference, which is why I have that as the biggest 3-game swing stretch of the season for West Virginia.
A dark horse 3-game stretch. I like it, especially with Coastal Carolina. Like, they're sneaky. They're usually one of the better group of 6 teams in the country.
Yep.
So to open your season with them, that's a tricky game. I'll go with the 3-game stretch middle of the year that does have a bye in between. I go Cincinnati October 17th, at TCU October 24th, and at Texas Tech.
See, that was originally my pick, but the bye week kind of throws it off because it makes that stretch a little bit easier just having that break in between.
Sure. And what does your season look like going into the bye week? Like, I think by the bye week, we'll have a really good sense of if West Virginia's for real or not, because they'll either be like 6-2 or 7-1, or they'll be below 500 and have a really tough road ahead. And by week 7 or week 8, whatever week that is in the college football calendar, like, you're usually pretty beat up by then. So what do they look like health-wise? Going into the Texas Tech game on Saturday, November 7th, out of the bye. And then if they somehow get through that stretch, they have 5 Big 12 home games this year. And Morgantown is really tough. They've got Kansas at home, Houston at home. They play Arizona, Cincinnati, and Oklahoma State at home. So I think their schedule's favorable in terms of that. They don't have a true, like, non-conference road game. They play that Virginia game at the Panthers Stadium in Charlotte. So I'll go middle of the road on their biggest 3-game stretch.
Let me just add one more aspect to that, first 3 games being the most important 3-game stretch. Remember, this is basically a new team, and this is a team way better suited to run Rich Rod's offense. And there'll be plenty more to say on that coming up in the next segment here as we break down some of the other parts of this. But when you think about, like, if they start 3-0, what does that do structurally for this Rich Rod team? Like, the momentum that builds as they are starting to prove out that they are this Rich Rod built offensive machine. Remember, Rich Rod's been successful everywhere he's been. He was successful at Arizona. It was just off the field stuff that led to his ousting there, right? I mean, the Michigan, he wasn't that bad. He just wasn't up to the Michigan standard at that point. And then
nobody was winning at Michigan back then,
right? And then Jack State, he won too. So for me, it's the first 3 games are a litmus test for, is this thing really going to look like a Rich Rod offense? Because last year it didn't, and it started with the offensive line. And we're going to know very quickly how good or bad that offensive line is going to be this year.
Well said. The road to Arlington, West Virginia, the team we highlight today. Coming up next, the one player they cannot lose, a hidden strength, the stat that will define the season, the pressure point, who carries the pressure this year, and what does success actually look like. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Whittington is tackled for a loss immediately by the first team All Big 12, Lee Hunter.
Hopefully in motion. It's a handoff to Jackson. He is wrangled almost immediately by Lee Hunter.
You don't see very many 330-pound guys that can move like Lee Hunter right here.
300. These ends get so much credit, and deservedly so.
Time running out again, and Peters is sacked.
Lee Hunter and Romello Height.
That's a live ball bouncing around there. And it's coming up Texas Tech. Pure panic setting in as big old Lee Hunter cleared a 30-pounder out of his grasp.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, brought to you each and every day by our friends at Modelo. We have leaned into the offseason never sleeps. The offseason optimism is always mandatory with our friends at Modelo. Highlighting West Virginia today, the road to Arlington. He's Ari, I'm James, and we dive into the one player, there's plenty to choose from, but the one player that West Virginia cannot lose this season to have success. Who is it?
Cam Cook. Running back Cam Cook. I'm assuming you're going to have him as well. For one, because success in Rich Rod's offense depends on the running game, but also because there's just not a ton of depth behind Cam Cook. They've got Andre Devine, who didn't play in 2025, Martavius Boswell, who's a JUCO transfer, and then a group of freshmen. They do have Amari Latimer, who's a 4-star running back recruit, but again, it's kind of Cam Cook and a bunch of unproven, questionable guys. So it's Cam Cook because he was leading rusher in college football last year. He's having his second go-around of the Big 12. The first was not very successful at TCU. And obviously Rich Rod's offense, which they think they have the right pieces for, needs a successful running back. So, to me, more so than the quarterback position.
Offense at TCU, and then at Jacksonville State, he knew that he would get the touches. He led the entire country in rushing last season, and between all of his numbers, I think the number one most important thing to me is the fact that he only had one fumble. Like, the guy carried the ball 295 times, and he only coughed it up once. Rich Rod will not play you if you turn the ball over, if you fumble the football. So Cam Cook's going to be on the field a ton. And then last year, too, we saw a drop-off once Jaheim White got hurt early on in the year. They struggled to rush the football. And College Football News, during their West Virginia preview, they were talking to a coach that said, yeah, he could have 2,000 yards. Like, that's not out of the picture. He had almost 1,700 last year, which means he'd average well over $150 per game. Cam Cook is my number one guy as well. Hidden strength.
For me, it's the offensive line, which I'm smiling if you can't see on Big 12 Studios.
Sounds like you're smiling.
It was the reason that the West Virginia was bad last year was their offensive line. Rich Rod said as much. We talked about his interview with Pete Thamel last week, where he basically said we couldn't block anybody. Thamel continually asked him about the skill position and how much better they are at certain positions, and he just kept bringing up the offensive line. So for me, the hidden strength of the offensive line is twofold, and it's based on the two new coaches on the offense, which is Rick Trickett, their new offensive line coach, who's a legendary offensive line coach, has a national championship ring from Florida State as an offensive line coach. He's back with his third stint with West Virginia. And whether he's a good coach or not, in terms of like in the modern era, because he's proven to be a good coach, but can he still coach? To me, that doesn't matter because he knows the Rich Rod system. He knows the way that Rich Rod wants it blocked. He knows the way that he wants the technique to work. Like, these are things that they know, having worked together in multiple spots with one another, which is huge. The other one is Jay Boulware. Jay Boulware is their running backs coach. Boulware is the former offensive lineman who coached with Dan Rushar, who's the current Bears offensive line coach, under Mike Tomlin. So, I mean, this is a guy that has coached at the highest level. He comes in with quite the acumen. And then those two guys working together, Trickett and Boulware, like, they're, to me, the cohesion between those two guys in terms of how they want their running backs to run, how they want their offensive line to block for it, it's that cohesion to me which will lead to the offensive line being very good. Now, they've got a lot of new pieces there, so it remains to be seen how good it'll be, but I think it'll be significantly better than last year. Last year it was not good at all. We probably should have seen that coming. This year it looks to be significantly better.
Yeah, with hidden strength, I looked at different position groups and thought about the wide receiver group, thought about the offensive line. But for me, it's one man and one name, and you said it with Rick Trickett, the offensive line coach. You noted that he's got that ring from Florida State, but he's 78 years old. He has a 52-year coaching career. Okay, 40-plus players onto the NFL, 15 All-Americans, 2 Remington Award winners. And this is his third time back in Morgantown. And there's a direct connection between Trickett, Rich Rod, and Cam Cook. He was the offensive line coach at Jacksonville State. All Cam Cook did was lead the country in rushing. The offense, even outside of Cam Cook, averaged 246 rushing yards per game. That was 5th best in the entire country. And then when you add on the fact that their incoming offensive line transfer portal class has 1,200 career snaps with that group, albeit at lower-tiered programs, but they're super experienced, which means they should be able to pick up whatever the Kool-Aid is that Rick Trickett is bringing to the table in terms of getting these guys ready systematically.
Well, there are 2 guys that transfer over from Jack State, Cameron Griffin and Amari Grayson, so
they know the system.
There's already that system familiarity. Plus, they've got 2 starters back. Landon Livingston's probably the best. And don't forget about Kevin Brown, the true freshman, who may be starting from day one. In fact, Rich Rod mentioned there's a good chance that he starts day one at left tackle. So there's a lot more talent at the position on the offensive line. And I think the combination of the talent with Trickett and then Boulware and their cohesion and knowledge of each other and the systems, for me, make that head strength.
Devin Voss comes over from Kansas State. He was a starter in this league. And West Virginia averaged less than 4 yards per carry. In a run-first offense, 3.7 yards per carry isn't going to cut it. So they'll have to be much better on the ground, and I think it starts with Trickett. All right, the number for West Virginia, the stat that could define the season, what is it?
Well, the number that I have is actually 3.3, and again, I don't know where you got 3.7 from. I don't know where I got 3.3 from team rankings. So 3.3 is the average yards per carry 2025. That's the number. That was 124th in the nation. West Virginia was a bit better, 81st in the nation at 139.5 rush yards per game, but overall, that's just not good enough. That's bottom third of college football in rushing, and in Rich Rod's offense, like, show me that number, and I'll tell you whether or not the offense is working. In 2025, West Virginia was 4-1 when generating 350 yards of total offense, and 0-7 when they didn't. So 350 was the magic number, and the run game is the engine of that total. Rick Trickett articulated the entire philosophy in one sentence, quote, "If you can run the football, you can do anything. You can run screens, drop back. If you can run the ball, it's a long day in bedrock for them, man. Screens open up when the run game's established. Play action works when linebackers cheat up. The zone read threats, it all works." So for me, 3.3 is the number because that's a horrible number on a yards per carry average. They've got to be north of 4, and I'll put it this way. They've got to rush for at least 175 yards per game.
So 175 could be the second number.
Yep.
Yeah, my number is 350. Because last year when they topped 350 yards of total offense, they went 4-1. And 350's not like 400 or 450 like what a lot of teams average in the Big 12. 350's very doable. When they hit 350, the defense was good enough for them to win games. They went 4-1. When they didn't hit 350, they went 0-7. All 7 losses came when the offense really struggled. And going back to the ground game, like against the best rushing defense in the Big 12 and top 5 in the country, Texas Tech, they carried the ball 22 times and only had 37 yards. They cannot have showings like that this season. So for me, everything needs to be better on the offensive side of the football, which is where Rich Rod's teams make the most growth from year 1 to year 2, which is usually his breakout season. All right, the pressure point before we get to success and what that actually looks like. What is your pressure point for West Virginia?
I think in most cases the pressure point's going to be the head coach. In certain cases it might be the quarterback. In this case, though, it's 100% the head coach. Vegas set West Virginia's win total at 5.5. The program went 4-8 in year 1, a second consecutive losing season. Even in a year with 80-plus new players, again, wouldn't result in a firing, but that seat gets hot for Rich Rod if year 2 looks a lot like it did in year 1. And I think the other part to that, too, is forget about the hot seat piece. Are you able to continually get commitments on the NIL front? You know, Rich Rod has long-term relationships in Morgantown, and he's certainly tapped into those in order to maximize the NIL piece. But 2 straight losing seasons, not much momentum. I don't know how much you're going to be able to build on that NIL donor piece. So I think forget about the hot seat part. You know, your hot seat is a product of not having much in terms of the NIL donations, and I think that's where they are if they have another losing season. So Rich Rod even said during his spring press conference, quote, "We don't have messing around money where you can make a whole lot of mistakes," end quote.
And Trickett to master the offensive line. Ton of experience up front there. They bring in the nation's leading rusher. They overhaul the defense. Like, on paper, they've done all the right things.
Yeah.
So the quarterback has to deliver. If this is going to be Pat White, Steve Slayton 2.0, that's a lot of pressure on Michael Hawkins, who doesn't have a ton of experience after being a highly touted recruit. So whether it's him, whether it's Scotty Fox, whether there's injuries or a quarterback rotation, however they do it, that room has to be rock solid for West Virginia to have success. And speaking of success, what does success actually look like in year 2?
So I think it's more along the lines of going 5-4 or better in Big 12 play. You know, West Virginia, Morgantown has to be a place that is really tough to win. and it hasn't been the last couple of years. When you think about the geographical outlier of West Virginia in this conference, that has to be one of the more difficult road environments and road place to play in college football and in the Big 12. And so I look at their conference record as a major gauge of that. You know, when Rich Rod had this thing rolling, it was one of the toughest places to play. Milan Pushkar Stadium is one of the toughest places to play. So they've got to get back to that, and I think if they do, that would be a product of, what the end result would be a record 5-4 better in conference play. I don't know if they're going to go 3-0. I mentioned that their 3-0 non-conference would be, the biggest 3-game swing stretch for them. But if they go 2-1, then you got to get to 5-4 in order to get to 7 wins, which I think most people would view as a success. So for me, it's 5-4 or better in conference play is what success looks like.
And if they go 3-0 in the non-conference and 5-4 or better in the Big 12, they hit 8 wins. And to me, 8 wins is success for West Virginia. I think it's more than just making a bowl, especially considering the first go-around, Rich Rod back in 2001 at West Virginia went 3-8 in year 1. Then he went 9-4 in year 2. Michigan, he upped his win total by 2 games in his second year. Arizona, major breakthrough year 3 after the same 8-5 mark his first 2 years. There's a pattern here with Rich Rod. And all the hype and the top 25 recruiting class coming in, a top 25 portal class. Also, last year, they only had little over 50% of their roster actually participate in the spring. This year, 90% of their roster participated in spring ball. So they are months ahead of where they were last year. 8 wins, to me, means a proven quarterback, means a bowl game, means Cook being a household name in this conference at running back. I think it could happen, and I kind of think that's the benchmark.
In fact, I'm glad you brought that up because here's what Rich Rod had to say about the differences in building his second roster at West Virginia versus 2002.
That's a great point. It's like some people think, well, now with the transfer portal and guys being able to go more easily from one school to another, it should be easier to do that. But you also lose guys, right? And so I think the first year is always the hardest. I remember Bobby Bowden, who I've known very, very well, and the whole family, of course. And he said, I remember him telling me, when I was coach at Glenville State in West Virginia, he said, Coach, you're going to go through 4 phases. You're going to lose big, lose close, win close, then win big. You know what I mean? And it's funny how that kind of worked out. At Glenville was kind of that way, worked out for us. Now this day and age, you don't want to lose big, then lose close, because that's 2 years of losing, right? So, for now on, you almost got to, if you lost big, like we lost big, we want to win, at least win close now, right? But it's challenging. It's different challenges now. You still have to establish the culture. We took so many transfer guys last year, and I think we kind of had to because where we were at, and we were late in the process. This year, we intentionally took a lot more high school guys because we wanted guys. We don't have 40.
Net rankings, which take into account who's left and who's coming in, gives West Virginia a top 20 transfer portal class in the country. And just to put that into perspective, Oklahoma State, because of all the guys they lost, is 26th in the country. So West Virginia, the guys that are coming in on paper are expected to be much better. All right, that is our road to Arlington, West Virginia. Is there a path for West Virginia to win the Big 12?
Yeah, why they will, why they won't. The path why they will win the Big 12, James, I would say because this is a very unique offense. Rich Rod's offense has won everywhere. It's a pace and space offense, and he's got the hosses to do it now. He's got the right offensive line coach. He's got the right running backs coach. He thinks he's got the right running back. We think he's got the right running back, the offensive line, quarterback. It's a tough offense to stop. It's a very unique offense that you're not going to see week to week, so it's tough to prepare for. So I think that plus, they had huge participation jump in this offseason. 90% were there for spring. This was a huge jump from last year. So this team is way more prepared year 2. They have way more talent year two. I think most of the country is sleeping on West Virginia. I don't think this is a team competing towards the top of the Big 12, and I'd lean more towards why they won't win the Big 12 championship or get to Arlington, but this is a team that should absolutely be a bowl team. I'm more confident in West Virginia as a bowl team this year than either of, well, as Oklahoma State too, but definitely more so than Colorado.
And for me, I think the only path is I'm super confident that the offense is going to be much improved, regardless of who's at quarterback. So that would turn it around to the defense. All that youth in the secondary, the defense is the wild card to me. Do they have to win games 45-42, or can they be better with that reworked secondary and defensive line?
Yeah.
And then why they won't?
Yeah, the defense. You just hit it there. 80% of this, of their defense is portal additions. So these are a bunch of guys that have never lined up together. The secondary is completely remade. Secondary has been very bad the last couple of years. They were finished towards the bottom in Division I and pass defense for the second consecutive year. So it feels like fixing the problem might have been helping their pass rush, and I'm not sure they did enough to do that. I'm very concerned about this defense, and it's a big reason why I think they won't win the Big 12.
Cody Nespor, the digital content producer at Gold and Blue Nation, joins us next to cap our Road to Arlington, West Virginia breakdown today here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, heard on TuneIn, powered by Modelo, and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Out to the edge and going nowhere. Logan Fano shows up again, this time in the run game to make it a 3rd down and long. Right tackle for Utah.
Logan's not giving up.
Logan is in there again. Back-to-back plays for Logan Fano.
Fano rips into the deck. Another toss. Shaw can't get past Fano. It's going to bring up 3rd down.
5-man front. Caden Salter be ready for pressure. Again, here it comes, and there it goes. Another sack. Fano, Lea'Ea in a race to the quarterback, sandwich Salter down. Not getting a lot of shots at offensive line. Pressure comes, picked up at least for a moment. Now Sims trying to get to the corner, and he sort of did.
Iowa State back in Boulder 2 weeks ago. Salter pressure, gets rid of it, and heaves it out of bounds. His running back Micah Welch was in the area, but it's pick your poison up front. Logan Fano applies it against
Big 12 today, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios, along with James Wesley. I'm Ari Temkin. Let's talk now with West Virginia baseball coach Steve Sabins, who 81-29, just a .736 winning percentage in just a couple of seasons as the head coach of West Virginia. Coach, how are you?
Doing great. How are you guys?
Doing very well, thank you. And a happy belated birthday to you. Was it last week?
It was last week. I'm holding on to my 30s. Got one more year.
That's right. Both James and I are turning 41 this year, so this is a big one for you. 39 last year, you're 30, so hold on as strong as you possibly can, man.
No doubt.
All right, so what a series to go to Kansas against the number one team. Now a team that still wins the conference, but to sweep them to at least keep it open. Just give us a sense of what went on that series. I mean, this is a Kansas team that had not lost at home all year, and you sweep them in 3 straight.
Yeah, we just been playing good baseball. I think the kind of identity of this team, how it's worked out, has just been consistency. We've really pitched and we've really defended, and so when you do that, you got a chance of being every ball game. And the series, I guess it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, we lost at Cincinnati. We missed our big horse. Maxiell was out that weekend, who ended up getting some accolades here in this conference recently. And then we played some extra innings, and so we were a little beat up, but we got healthy. And then we kind of went on a run. We swept Kansas State, and then we swept Kansas, and then beaten TCU 2 out of 3. So we just felt like we got healthy, been consistent all year, and have played great defense. This has probably been the funnest team from a defensive perspective that I've ever coached. Just absolutely nails in the outfield, catching, very athletic. Fielding percentage is top in the league. And so our pitchers have been tremendous. And then if they get barreled or if things happen in the game, it feels like we've been able to neutralize with our defense. And so that part's been fun. I think we got hot at the right time. Kansas is an incredible team with a great coaching staff, really talented. And so when we went in there, I think the kids were just playing confident and kind of played their brand of baseball. And so it was a great weekend for our program.
Yeah, winners of 9 of your last 10. When you say, and I like that word choice, fun, the defense is fun. What makes it fun? After a brief weather delay, back here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo, the road to Arlington, our Modelo off-season series continues today with West Virginia, and we welcome in Cody Nespor, the digital content producer covering West Virginia for Gold and Blue Nation. And Cody, we both had the biggest question mark when it comes to West Virginia. It starts at the quarterback because 5 guys played last year. Out of spring practice, camp, whatever you want to call it, who, in your opinion, is the leader in the clubhouse?
It's probably Scotty Fox Jr. He was the true freshman that started last year, and he's back. He played the back half of the season, and he got a lot better kind of game over game. But Rich Rodriguez loves Michael Hawkins, who they brought over from Oklahoma, who didn't play very much with the Sooners. He's really athletic. Didn't show too much with Oklahoma because he didn't get the opportunity, but Rich raved about him in spring. So it's going to be one of those two. I'd probably say Scotty would be the favorite right now just because he's got the experience, here and in the system.
Yeah, it's interesting because I would have thought Hawkins would be the guy. Obviously, Fox has a familiarity in the leg up there, but it feels like they brought in Hawkins to win the job, and he's maybe best suited to run Rich Rod's offense. But I don't know. I guess we know Fox is a dual threat too, so maybe it's a wash. But I don't know. From the outside looking in, it feels like they brought Hawkins in to win the job.
Yeah, and they're going to give him the chance in fall. It's just I think in spring, like Scotty took the reps with the ones, even though there weren't really ones in spring. But he was out there with who we think are going to be the starters. But again, I think that's just spring ball. It doesn't really matter. Like Hawkins is absolutely going to be given the chance to win the job, and nobody's going to be shocked if he starts week 1, right? I just think after spring, like if we're talking about practice 1 in August, who's going to take the first team reps? I assume Scotty, but like a lot changes in the fall camp.
Yeah, that's a good point. Why did West Virginia average less than 4 yards per carry rushing the football last season, and what is Rick Trickett doing to fix that?
Yeah, it was part offensive line and then part running back injuries. Like at the end of the year, I mean, they were down in the dregs of the depth chart, like bringing guys over from defense to get carries.
Wow.
So that was part of it, and the other, like, the offensive line wasn't very good, right? Like that's not a hot take. That was apparent from watching. They brought in offensive linemen they like, including the true freshman Kevin Brown, who they flipped from Penn State. And Rick Trickett, like, he's a guy Rich just trusts, right? They worked together multiple times at multiple spots, and it's kind of just like a set it and forget it thing for Rich, where like, oh, Rick's here, the offensive line's going to be fine now. You know what I mean? So I think there's just a comfortability from the head coach, who's also the play caller, who also designs the whole offense. But yeah, it's and they brought in Cam Cook, the nation's leading rusher. So I think on the outset, they feel much better about the running game this year.
Yeah. How about the defense? Because to me, that's the biggest question mark. I buy that the offense is going to be dramatically improved, and this is going to look a lot like a Rich Rod offense. But the defense, I mean, it's been a brutal secondary the last couple of years. They were one of the worst in pass defenses the last 2 years with 2 different head coaches and 2 different coordinators. So give us a sense of the defense.
Yeah, that's a big question mark. It's basically a full redo. There's like 2 part-time starters back, but that's kind of it from last year's team, which, as you said, based on results, maybe that's not a bad thing. But they brought in, experienced guys, but not like power 4 experienced guys. So I think that's the question mark is, can these guys jump up 1 or 2 levels and be good? Because they're going to be experienced. They're it's not, 10 true freshmen out there. It's going to be interesting. I actually think the secondary is maybe the group on the team as a whole that maybe has the highest ceiling. They just brought in a ton of like high talent, high pedigree guys that, again, haven't played at this level or are true freshmen. But I don't know. That's the one kind of unit that's really interesting to me to see how they develop.
Cody, when West Virginia has their first bye, or their only bye, I should say, on Halloween, Saturday, October 31st. Like, they'll already have played 8 games. We think the schedule shapes up for them to get off to a strong start if they're going to be a contender. What is success in the eyes of West Virginia fans in year 2 of 2.0 for Rich Rod?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, it's playing more competitive games. Probably half the schedule last year was just non-competitive, big blowout losses. So that's like 1, right? Like beat in games. And 2, it's, I think the expectation this year is to make a bowl game, to go into practice. Like, I think a lot of people give Rich a pass last year because of, he got in late and he couldn't recruit high schoolers, and it was a kind of a rush job portal class. To be quite honest. So I think a lot of people do give that a pass. Like, he just kind of had to get in and get a team together. And this is maybe the first year where there's actually a build. So I think, A, being more competitive in more games, and B, like a bowl game, I think would be a real success this year.
Yeah, and what's the path to that? Like, where do you see that they could do that based on what they've done this offseason?
Yeah, like you said, like it's not a brutal schedule, in all honesty. There's a lot of teams on the schedule that should be in West Virginia's like tier of maybe they're not going to contend for their own conference title, but like they want to make a bowl game. Like they play Virginia on a neutral site, and then I think they open up Big 12 play Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Arizona. Like those to me are three teams that are in West Virginia's exact position of like, hey, we're probably not going to win the league this year, but we want to go to the postseason. And if it's, and like you said, all those games are before their first bye, so like we'll probably know by then like how this is going to shake out. Like if they can beat teams like that, or at least compete with teams like that, yeah, they're probably going to be in a good spot to get 6 wins. If they struggle against, Oklahoma State and Iowa State and Virginia, like it's not a great sign.
Cody Nespor works for Gold and Blue Nation, joining us here on Big 12 today to break down the West Virginia Mountaineers. Cody, what in your opinion are we or the public missing on this West Virginia football team, like a hidden strength where this team could be really good?
Yeah, so it's because Rich's offense is so run heavy. That's all anybody wants to focus on. But I looked at this group of receivers the other day. They are huge. Like there's 5 or 6 guys 6'2" and up, and they're all over 200 pounds. And I think this receiver, like even if they don't throw the ball a ton, this is like a big physical receiver room that I think could maybe give people matchup problems. Like if a team comes in with like undersized DBs, I just physically don't think they're going to be able to cover these guys or, attack them in the running game. And that's like I said, because of Rich's offense, I think people don't think about the passing side, right? Like that's the afterthought in how is West Virginia going to move the ball and score points. But yeah, I think this receiver room sneakily could be really good if A, they stay healthy, which for some of these guys is the issue, and B, some of these young guys like end up being legit.
Is Jaden Bray healthy?
He right now, yes, he's fully healthy. He was good to go in the spring.
Okay, awesome stuff. Cody Nespor, digital content producer at Gold and Blue Nation, joining us to break down West Virginia. Great insight. Thank you, Cody.
Absolutely.
Cody Nespor, our guest, the road to Arlington, breaking down the West Virginia Mountaineers with the biggest question marks, the biggest gamble, trap games, the biggest game, the 3-game stretch, the one player they can't lose. We went through numbers, their hidden strength, and what success actually looks like. That is the road to Arlington, powered by Modelo, highlighting West Virginia. Today, we wrap up the program. Coming up next, he's Ari, I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio.
Malachi Lawrence ends that drive for K-State. He is swallowed up behind the line of scrimmage. Malachi Lawrence, a loss of 2. Third down and long, trouble on the edge, and they go back-to-back. This one belongs to Malachi Lawrence. Johnson on a 4th and 6. Scans. Backpedaling. Going the opposite way. Now he throws around the edge. In pursuit. UCF gets to him. Malachi Lawrence, one of their 2 vaunted pass rushers on the edge, ends that drive for K-State.
He's got our antennas up. Goes down. Malachi Lawrence again. This time, his first sack of the season.
That's just absolute force right there by Malachi Lawrence. It's a play if you're UCF. Here's Pryor, and he is swallowed up behind the line of scrimmage. Malachi Lawrence, a loss of 2, and before the quarter break. Fox leaves the pocket to the numbers and track down. Malachi Lawrence finishes 3 here in Orlando with his UCF 9th.
Big 12 Today with Ari and James. Your home for interviews, analysis, and all things Big 12. This is Big 12 Radio on TuneIn.
Big 12 Today here on Big 12 Radio. Highlighting the West Virginia Mountaineers today, the Road to Arlington series. Tomorrow, we will be breaking down UCF. Matt Murschel, the UCF and college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel and Tribune, will join us. Max Olson, the national college football and transfer portal reporter for ESPN, will also be on the program. The highlight guest today, we had the commish, Brett Yormark, in studio. He joined us for about a half hour in hour number 2, breaking down the new Redbird Capital and Weatherford deal, the college football playoff, the NCAA tournament expansion. Every offseason, it feels like every offseason is just a bigger offseason when it comes to all the sports, for all the conferences, and just the landscape in general.
Yeah, and I loved the stuff that Yormark said about the 2014 playoff. And look, he supports a 2014 playoff because more opportunities for the Big 12, but he said it's got to make financial sense. And like we talked about, like what would be the impetus for Greg Sankey to give in? Tony Petitti already said, like, it's 24 or nothing. We're either doing 12 or 24. So the idea that it's going to go from 12 to 16 to 24 seems far-fetched. So for Sankey to come around on 24, it feels like it's got to make financial sense. And Yormark said they've got to do some modeling to see that it makes financial sense. And by that it means, you lose a Big 12 or an SEC championship game, that doesn't make financial sense. Those are financial boons for each conference. So they've got to do the modeling to make sure it makes sense, not just to be made whole, to come, to lose the champ game but become even, but to grow the revenue. Mm-hmm. They're not in it to, you're in it to win it in terms of revenue. So I think that was a big takeaway. Like when the math becomes overwhelming, then there's nothing that Sankey can really say to the contrary.
Right.
And that's what they need to get it.
It was also fascinating to hear him say, I hear like everybody else what Petitti and Sankey and those guys are saying.
Correct. Right.
Like, he reads it the same as you and I.
Now, he's having deeper conversations, and he's not going to say what those are. But, yeah, to your point.
Like, when they get together, sure. But also reads the same quotes from their meetings and the SEC meetings. The Big 12 spring meetings are next week. Like, these guys aren't in a group chat where they're talking about the college football playoff. It was just really unique to hear a man like that speak like that when it comes to what actually happens behind the scenes. All right, the All-State Across the Conference series tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern with this guy and Sydney Staples to talk about Big 12 baseball tournament. We've got softball super regionals. KU's Dan Fitzgerald was named the Big 12 baseball coach of the year. And then yesterday in the Big 12 tournament, there are games today. Yesterday, BYU, the 9 seed, they pound Texas Tech 18-8, and then Kansas State gets a win over Utah. So today, we've got Baylor and BYU and TCU and Kansas State. TCU really needs that one for their postseason hopes.
Yeah, TCU's just had so many injuries, and it feels like they just continue to pile up. Even more so now. It was pitching, and now it's hitting. Big time win for BYU last night. BYU is really building something. They're not a tournament team this year, but unless they win the Big 12 tournament. But this is a team that will push for an NCAA tournament next year. I think this is a team that you look year over year, last 2 years, the growth that they've shown, and they just mercy ruled Texas Tech in a game. What's also interesting about Texas Tech is, that's been one of the most consistent and best programs in the Big 12. Josh Young, who's one of the best young sluggers in Major League Baseball for the Texas Rangers, played for Texas Tech. And they're just in a weird spot. Like, it's 2 down years in a row now, and it's interesting. Like, they clearly are not getting the financial backing that many other sports at Texas Tech are, and I wonder how much that has to do with Tim Tadlock. Is he sort of anti-NIL, and maybe anti-NIL is not the best way to put it, but like, there's clearly money to be spent in baseball. Texas Tech has it. Why they aren't, I don't know, but that to me is one of the biggest subplots to the Big 12 baseball offseason is when will Texas Tech get back to being Texas Tech, because the rest of the league is spending at a level that
a fantastic matchup case study, them
Yes,
playing each other.
right.
Because BYU's been the second biggest spender in the Big 12 across the board, all sports. We've seen an uptick in basketball. We've seen the growth in football. We're seeing the growth in real time in baseball. They went 7-23 in Big 12 play 2 years ago. This year they go 10-20, but they start knocking off some of the upper echelon teams, so you can see the growth. 28-27 overall in the Big 12.
Well, and again, go back to the Yormark conversation to kind of bring this full circle. Yormark mentioned how much Olympic sports could factor into that 2030 TV deal. When Yormark first took the job, he mentioned maybe uncoupling the rest of the sports from football. And as we've pressed him on that over the years, he's evolved his thinking on that. Ultimately, what I believe is when it comes to the 2030 media rights, it will be more advantageous for the Big 12 to package it all together with eyes on the future. But I also think it's important to note that we also don't know who the entire composition of the Big 12 will look like in 2030, again, because by 2030, the ACC could implode. That is probably the year that it will if it does. So, all bets might be off in terms of uncoupling. But, Big 12 baseball, Kansas being a consistent program, something we didn't anticipate or see happening.
And the environment and the way that KU and Lawrence has rallied behind the team.
West Virginia being you expect Baylor and TCU and Texas Tech to be at the forefront of the Big 12, and those are three teams that have had down years now here. Meanwhile, it's Kansas and UCF and West Virginia that are at the front of the class. So I think that surprise is good news for the Big 12 because I don't expect TCU to be down forever. I don't expect Texas Tech to be down forever. I don't expect Baylor to be down forever, right? So when those programs sort of catch back up, now you're looking at the top of the Big 12, which looks very, very good. And I think you're seeing something similar in softball. We're about to see 4 Big 12 teams compete in the super regionals in softball. If they get a couple of through, that'd be fantastic. Those are going to be really good matchups. Arizona State against Texas will be really tough, but they look to complete that Texas two-step with knocking out A&M. Can they do the same thing to the defending champs? But, yeah, when I look at where we're heading in spring sports, it's really interesting to see where we're at. And, Yormark mentioned the importance of those sports in terms of the growth of that TV revenue pie.
Yeah, and Arizona State softball, they will not go down without a fight against Texas. Cannot wait for that. So later on tonight at 6:30 Eastern, Baylor and BYU on ESPN Plus baseball, and then TCU and Kansas State to follow at 10 o'clock Central on ESPN Plus. All right, last thing, 55515. Those 5 digits.
Is that a phone number? 567-5309, 867-5309.
Close. 55515.
867-5309.
There it is. Listen to those pipes.
Thank you.
All right, so
people
this.
tell me I've got a wonderful singing voice.
Who says that?
Nobody.
Okay, nobody.
Sorry, I said people.
Combination of Fergie and Jesus. Stand it. All right, so I see this viral post last night. I'm like, okay, this has got to be made up. So that some woman is going viral because she claims that physical pain can be reduced without medication simply by repeating this number sequence, 55515. So according to her, the sequence acts like some quantum code that apparently links back to the CIA's declassified gateway process documents. Like, okay, this sounds
what?
Nutty. This sounds made up. Apparently.
Not only does it sound made up, it sounds ridiculous.
Listen, I found the CIA document. It's a real thing. There was an underground program that the CIA ran, part of this gateway process, to reduce pain signals. This is from the CIA, now declassified document. Look with your closed eyes, so you're supposed to close your eyes. Where do you have pain right now in this moment?
I don't.
Okay.
Should I?
I mean, at your age, yeah, probably. Actually, you should feel pretty good about the fact that you don't. So look with your closed eyes at that part of your body, which is the source of pain signals. As you look, repeat in your mind the number 55515. When you do these two things, the pain signals will slowly reduce until they are no longer important. The CIA believed that if you repeat that sequence, close your eyes, think about the pain in your body, that it would trick your brain into removing the pain.
Why not 581746 or 324441?
Why those 5 numbers? Nobody knows. Could it have been any numbers?
Well, it portrays to me the classic mind over matter, right? Which is you can will with your brain the power to fix things, change things, etc. Mind over matter, right? So that's sort of what it seems like here. It's almost like a like you're tricking your brain. What do they call that? When you take like a placebo effect. That's what that is basically. Like it's a placebo effect. Like if you believe it will work, then it will work.
Manifest it.
Yeah.
Manifest it.
But that's why I'm wondering, like, will other sequence of numbers work, or does that have to be that specific number, and what's the relevance of that?
According to the CIA, that is a very specific quantum code number.
What is this?
55515.
What year is this from?
It looks like a long time ago.
Yeah, like what I want to know is what are the non-declassified CIA pain?
This document looks like it was put together on a typewriter. Okay, so that should give you a little bit of an idea. But there's a lot of good stuff in here. Here's another favorite of mine. To charge the body for great speed and the strong energy of red. Has to be the color red. Think of the color red. As you exhale, open your eyes, and perform the act you wish to accomplish. Lightning speed.
What's super funny about, like, the internet is sometimes you could, like, people can find things that are, like, chicken scratch. Like, I would imagine that there was somebody in the CIA years ago that wrote this, thought it might actually do something, be something, but really is just, like, nothing, right? And that's probably why it was declassified. Right? Like, they don't just...
Yeah, like it didn't work?
Like it didn't work. And I'm sure that there are thousands of documents that the CIA has declassified over the years that also didn't work. And yet just waiting for somebody to find it and then come up with some viral video that will help them go viral on the internet about pain. I don't know. Try it. Maybe see if it works.
My wife and I tried it last night.
Awesome.
Having foot pain, it didn't move the needle.
So you guys both together had the same foot pain?
Didn't work at all.
It's two people, one brain? Is that how it is?
Just her. Just her. I just watched it.
You said we. I was like, is this a...
I gave her the instructions.
A mutual
I was like,
pain
no, it's
here?
got to be 55515. Make sure you're saying the right number. 1977, by the way.
1977. Has medical technology changed at all since 1977?
Just a smidge. Just a pinch.
Just a tiny bit.
All right, tomorrow we will highlight UCF, part of our Road to Arlington series. But for us, that'll do it for this Wednesday edition of Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. For the guy behind the camera at Big 12 Studios, Anthony Smith. And for T-Chains, our audio producer, we are out of here until then.